Hey, this is Frugal Panda here. I thought I'd do a video on Denver. Um, Moving to Denver. Real quick, a little bit of my background. I ended up in Colorado Springs. I was stationed at Fort Carson, which is an Army base down in Colorado Springs. And so I ended up leaving, going back to California, getting restationed there, my next contract. And I ended up coming back here. I had an ex-wife. We were married at the time, and she was from technically Kansas, but a lot of her family was here. So anyway, I ended up back in the Springs. Um, Relationship didn't work out. I ended up with custody of my child and met another woman, and we've been together for ooh, 20 years. So I lived in Colorado Springs 10 years, I want to say. No, that's not true. About 6 or 7 years. 2004, I ended up coming back, moving up here, or 2005, just for more job opportunities. And Colorado Springs job market can be kind of stagnant, even though it's a fairly large city. It's kind of stagnant in a way. Moved up here. It was the greatest decision I ever made in regards to Colorado. I would say moving up here to Denver, and when I say Denver, I mean the whole metro area. Denver consists of Aurora, Thornton, Westminster, Littleton. Um, I'm missing a couple of them. And then you have the other sleeper communities like Castle Rock, which is its own city, but a lot of people commute from Castle Rock up here too. I technically live in Aurora. And I will say if you're looking at moving up here and you have a family, make sure you research the areas you're looking at. And what I mean by research, the best thing I'd use, and we've owned four houses up here. One in Centennial. Centennial's the other small city. Centennial, two in Aurora, maybe three in Aurora. Don't remember. Anyway, and then we rented a house in Denver proper. Now, with the family, one of the best ways to research, and it's very expensive here, is go to one of the things we used. Every house we bought was, I think it was greaterschools.com or greaterschools.net. You can Google it, and it will show the elementary schools, the middle schools, and the high schools, and then they give them a ranking, excuse me, between 1 and 10. You want to look at those because one, it affects your property values, but two, what's the education going to look like for your kids? I also work during the day, part time in public school settings. I'm in healthcare. Healthcare is my technically is my main position, but it's so flexible. It's allowed me to venture out and do day jobs and try my hands at other things, and I'm thankful for that. Um, and that's something to think about. One of the top school districts in Denver area is going to be Cherry Creek. Cherry Creek School District is a good one. All my kids graduated, except for one. I got an 11-year-old now um, from a Cherry Creek school. Littleton School District is good. Douglas counties, there's many of them. You can just research it and look it up. Aurora Public School District, not so good. They have like one or two STEM schools that are ranked really high, but beyond that, and when I say Aurora, I'm not talking about. I live in Aurora. Aurora is so big of a city. There's like 200,000 people here, but it's spread out so it's one I think might have the most land mass in regards to counties. With that being said, so there's two school districts, and there might be an overlap of another school district. Douglas might touch it too. Is Cherry Creek and Aurora, APS. APS is the weaker of all of them. A lot more poverty, stuff like that. You'll look at crime too. There's a lot of crime in Denver. There's a lot of crime in Aurora. I live in the suburbs, so I live out in what they call the Southlands area. That's the new development, way out, and we have our own mall and all that stuff, outdoor mall, all that good stuff. Now, and that's Cherry Creek School District. Aurora gets worse the closer you get to Colfax. Colfax is the main road that goes through Denver and goes way out into the country and everything. Um, if you had a family, look at the either Aurora Southlands area, more so out, not Aurora proper. Denver is not really. If I had a family, I would not live in Denver itself unless I lived more around the Hamden area, Tamarack area. That area is very nice. It's Cherry Creek School District, all that good stuff. Downtown is more for singles. It's like this. I look at it like this, to be honest with you. Would you feel comfortable with your, say, your 11, 12-year old, let's say 13-year-old daughter walking to school in downtown Denver, having to navigate through crackheads, meth heads, prostitutes, all the drama that goes on with that part of town, and not to mention the cost of living is so high down there. You're talking some of those houses be junky, and they'll be worth $800,000. I'm talking junky. I got a pretty new house out here in Aurora, out in the Southlands area, which is a very nice area. We have from, you know, what, low 400s to $1 million houses out here, right? I can go up a couple streets, and these, you start hitting those 800 to $1 million houses. Job wise, so that's something to think about, is that if you have kids. Single, you can live downtown. It's exciting, you know, it's all that. If you're a couple, young or old, you may like it too. You got Cheeseman Park, you got Wash Park, you got all those places too, and there's a lot of stuff to do down there. So I'm not knocking Denver, downtown Denver. I'm just saying with the family, it's just something to think about. And your cost of living and what you're paying. I work in healthcare, and I watch people that or not own, but rent downtown, that move here from other states, and they're paying more than my mortgage to live downtown. And a lot of them are new to the healthcare field and what I do for a living, and they make less than me. And I'm like, why would I move here and barely functioning? And a lot of them aren't functioning. All they can really talk about is, oh, I went to this cool, you know, little poetry, you know, cafe. Yeah, that's cool, because that's all they got money for. That's good. Well, what did you do? You know, me myself. Oh, we went to Japan for 2 weeks. You know, make sure you're getting bang for your buck. You know, type of thing. Jobs, plenty of jobs. Our pay though is kind of low, to be honest with you. So if you're coming from Wisconsin, or because I know people that came from Wisconsin, I've actually seen their paychecks. And it's harder to negotiate depending on what field you're in, though. It depends on what field you're in. And they come up here making less, but for their area, it's good money until they get hit with how much rent's going to cost. So, and just an example, say you're making $60,000, $70,000 a year, and you're moving from a place where you only got paid $40,000, but the average rent was $500 or $600. You get up here and you're like, oh wow, I got all this money. But then you go to look for an apartment, and you find out the apartment you want is going to cost you $1,500 to $2,000 a month. So and I've seen a lot of people come out here and also go home. I've seen people come out here for, say, like nursing school, and they'll come out here, get their license, pass their test, go to school, and then take off back to where they're from. I watched a couple people from Oregon do that, just because they pay them more, and the quality of life. But there are jobs. That's the thing about it. If you're willing to work, you don't just have to have one job. You can have two. I've always carried 2 or 3 jobs. I work in healthcare. That job is flexible. I can work day, nights, evenings. I work nights a lot of times, and I make my own schedule. So I may work 40 hours a week, or I may work just 1 shift a week. And then I usually have something I'm doing during the day, because my field is pretty hard, to be honest with you. And I've been doing this I've been in mental health social work for 20 years. So a lot of times I can't do it full time anymore. I have to take breaks here and there. And so I'll do something completely different, or something that uses my skill set, such as education, but it doesn't overlap so much that it creates burnout. And I've always made sure I've tried to take care of myself not to get burnt out. And anybody in healthcare knows what I'm talking about. What else? Diversity. For people of color, you will see yourself out here. I'm biracial. I see myself. I see everybody. There's everybody out here. Different areas are not going to have. They're going to have different types of diversity. In some areas, once you get out of the city, may not have that much diversity. But well, that's not even true. Even when you go out into the country and stuff, you're going to see. There's always going to be some. There's always going to be Hispanic people. There's usually, and I'd look this up. I used to be an economist for the Department of Labor, so sometimes I like numbers. So I always look things up I'm curious about. Even the small towns you go to, they're usually about 10 to, and a lot of times, sometimes, depending on where you're at, it could be up to 50% of the population. In some of the smaller towns, especially more blue-collar areas in Colorado itself, are Hispanic. So there will always be some form of diversity. There'll be some minority group there. And even when I go to places, Steamboat Springs, things like that, I'll see somebody that looks like me. I'll see more than one person that looks like me. People don't stare usually. They're not going to stare at you. And my spouse is white. Um, I've never had any problems with anything by calling me names. I'm a fairly big dude, and I'm ex-military, and I'm kind of mean when I need to be. And in my line of work, I have to deal with problems. I've never dealt with anything like that, and that's just to be honest with you. I'm telling you the truth on that. I never have. I feel pretty comfortable. What else about it? It has traffic is horrible. So I-25 is horrible during work hours. So try and get jobs closer to where you live, or if you're in healthcare like me, or you have jobs where you work night shift, it won't affect you as much. But like my spouse, we made sure to buy this in the last house closer. We bought this house 6 months ago, closer to where she works. Me, I drive 30 minutes away at night, and because there's no traffic. And actually where I work for my night job is pretty far away, but during the day, coming home at about 8:30, it takes me about an hour to go about 18, 19 miles, I would say. So just be prepared for that. Traffic is horrible. Outdoors are gorgeous. It's Colorado. That's why you're probably looking at here as one of your places you want to go. But here's the difference, and I found this out because I went to Oregon 3 times this year, and I'll tell you the rest of this story. I'm looking at moving there. Oregon and Colorado have about the same land mass, but Colorado has at least double their population because people's moving there, but this one really got hit with people moving from California and everywhere. So you go to a trail. Back when I first got here, there wouldn't be hardly anybody there. You could get to trails pretty easy, and there would be hardly anybody there. Now when you go there, there'll be so many people there. There'll be so many people, and I'm not joking. You have to drive further away to get to them. I have to go camping during the week a lot of times. I have to drive far away. There are so many people here, and everyone moving here because of the outdoors. So the way it used to be and the way it is now is totally different. But if you come from a place that doesn't have the beauty of here, I grew up in Indiana. Indiana's green and all that stuff, but it is not Colorado. It's not. It may be green. Colorado is kind of dry, and it gets really hot here too, but it's nothing like here. The mountains, gorgeous, all that stuff. With that being said, we're looking at moving to Oregon potentially in 5 or 6 years. We visited Eugene and that surrounding area, all up and down the coast actually, 3 times this year. I took a blue moon vacation where I just jumped in my car and took off there. And the reason I'm looking at Oregon, and it's not as diverse here, the beach. They have the beach. They have half the population, and I would stop at trails, and there'd be nobody there while we were there. We went to trails, and oh my God, there was no one like the whole time. I heard someone way off in the distance. Never even saw the person, so that would freak me out. I know there's someone else out here, but never saw him. I'm trying to think, what else is there about Colorado? Pretty good jobs. You'll always get a job. There's always jobs. Cost of living is very high, very, very high. My house, I have a 4-bedroom. I think this one's a 4-bedroom. It's about $500,000 for this house in a pretty good neighborhood. No, not a pretty good. It is a good neighborhood. It's the suburbs. It's a very good neighborhood. In a regular neighborhood, high 300s to low 400s is what you're going to pay. Just be careful what you buy. Don't buy above your means too much here because everything's expensive. It's going to be more expensive a lot of times in other areas you're coming from if you're not in California or New York. And you can find yourself with just a house, and all you can really do is go to the trails and go to the mountains, and then you see your neighbors, like me, disappearing for weeks at a time. You're like, where you at, neighbor? Oh, we just got back from Denmark. What'd you do last week? Oh, well, I hiked a trail, because it gets old after a while. But you got all that. Downtown is lively for Denver. The surrounding areas have, Littleton has Old Littleton, cool little downtown. Arvada has Old Arvada, which is really cool. There's tons of little towns like that. And then you go in the mountains, and there's tons of these pretty little mountain towns to go rent a cabin and all that stuff.